Good morning, everybody. David McLeod here. It's a magnificent day, and it's a day about magnificence. Today, we're going to be talking about the magnificence within, and we're going to have some fun with that because, well, that's just kind of what we do. We have fun. And so I would like to just warmly welcome my good friend, my buddy, Tommy Stoffel, to our stage here and say, hey, good morning, Tommy. How are you doing?
Hey, David. I'm doing great. Thanks, and hello to you, too. Thanks for the nice, warm intro. Yeah, today, magnificence within. What's that all about? A lot of times we go through life and we feel like, a lot of people, we feel like crap, or we are, have this propensity to remember the bad stuff that's happening and to not look at the bright side. And it reminds me of the song, Walking on the Sunny Side of the Street, I think it goes something like that, right? So today we're going to explore and bring some attention and some love to the good in us and the amazement in us and the potential that is us. And so that's what we're talking about today when we mean magnificence. And we're going to divert our attention away from what's broken and what needs to be fixed and what we still need to work on. And we're going to honor and respect and love the beings that we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tommy, when we were discussing this topic, I remember, you brought to my attention the story of the guy who was talking to the sculptor and asking him, well, hey, how do you make this amazing, beautiful work of art from this big chunk of rock? So how'd that go again?
It went something to the, I wasn't there that I know of, but it went something to the effect that I believe it's Michelangelo, replied, the masterpiece, and he was sculpting David at the time, the statue of David out of marble, and he said, the masterpiece is already in here. David is already in here. All I need to do is brush away some of the rubble around it and chip away some of the rock around it and expose it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, when I hear that story, no matter how well or poorly it's told, it resonates with the fact that we already are this masterpiece within whatever block of stone we feel we're in. We're within whatever crud we're carrying around with us, within whatever nutty stuff still going on in our heads until it's not anymore.
Right.
That masterpiece is there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that story, and I remembered when you brought it to my attention, I had remembered hearing it before, and I thought that is a great story. That is something that I think all of us would do well to remember. I think if when I look at it as a metaphor, I think of the rock or the marble on the outside as kind of like those layers that we put over ourselves. Maybe we do it to protect ourselves, in the early stages of our lives when, sometimes we hear negative things about ourselves from whoever, it could be from our parents, it could be from other caregivers in our lives, it could be from teachers, it could be from politicians, it doesn't matter. From other people who maybe don't have a high level of awareness, they put their own judgments and their spin upon us, and somehow we take it on. And it's kind of like we're taking layers and just kind of wrapping it around ourselves and then trying to show up in a way that we hope will please those other people. Meanwhile, what are we doing? We're hiding our true nature. We're making it impossible for people to really see who we are. And yet deep down inside, that's what our most beloved and deepest longing is all about, is to be seen and recognized and experienced and held for who we really are, and not for these masks or costumes or anything else that we put on ourselves. So I love the story, I love the metaphor, and that's what we're here to do today, is help people to kind of understand maybe the dynamic that they've created for themselves and help them to get into a process of maybe slowly removing those layers so that we can benefit from seeing who they really are.
Yeah, spot on. And all sorts of images are popping into my head of, Pink Floyd, bricks on the wall. Yeah. We build these walls around us. Now I'm going to flip this a little bit, and we've been flipping this a little bit differently, spinning this tail a little bit differently. It's not so much that we're building these bricks in the wall ourselves. It's not so much that we're burying ourselves underneath all this stuff, because we're just behaving as children in this world that are raised in this human race. We're just behaving, we're doing the best we can with what's around us. So I don't envision myself, as 5 years old, taking bricks and slathering cement on them and making another brick and making this big structure around myself. But we're born.
Well, it is largely unconscious.
Unconscious, yes. Yeah. So, but there's an element of forgiving in here too, that you can't hold yourself. I can't keep beating myself up for what I've become.
Right.
Look, I'm born into this human race, no choice. As soon as I came out of my mom, boom, I was in this human race, and this human race is a master mason. The human race is a bunch of master bricklayers. That's one thing they've gotten really good at. Mm-hmm. And then we just become good bricklayers.
Right.
We become good at building a wall. I sometimes used to think, like, I'm going to go talk to somebody. How do I get through to them? And here's how I envision that story. When I walk up to somebody, and whether they've asked for help or whether I, just want to see if there's anything I can do for them, I feel like I'm talking to a guard. I'm talking to a guard that's at a shack, and it's a pretty solid cement guard shack, a nice little stone structure.
Like a bunker.
Like a bunker. And the guard is in front of that bunker. Well, the guard hangs out in the bunker when it rains. Because what's behind the bunker is a drawbridge. And what's under that drawbridge is a moat. And what's in that moat are freaking alligators. And behind that drawbridge is a big freaking door. And that door is part of a giant freaking castle with giant stones and turrets and guards on those. And somewhere in that compound, is the real being I want to talk to. Right. Somewhere in there is the king or the queen of the castle.
Yeah.
At the top of a tower, almost like a prisoner in their own world of brick. Mm-hmm. That's who we're talking to. We're talking to the king or the queen of the palace.
Yeah.
That's the masterpiece within. That's who you really are.
Right.
All this other stuff is facade. It's all image. It's all bricks in the wall.
Right. And why on earth would we build these big giant castles with drawbridges and moats and bunkers and guards and all the rest of it, except to protect ourselves? And what are we protecting ourselves from? We're protecting ourselves from fears that we believe are going to cause us pain. That's ultimately what it boils down to. And more often than not, many of those fears, almost all of them, in fact, are imaginary. I'd say about 98% of the fears that we have in our minds are imaginary. There might be 1 or 2% that are real things that we have to watch out for. And so we have to kind of protect ourselves, at least in this physical world. But in doing so, what do we end up doing but hiding that amazing, beautiful, fantastic essence, a part of ourselves that I call magnificence, because that's what it is. It's just absolutely grand, beautiful, majestic, sovereign, angelic. I mean, everything about it is fantastic. And so the only thing we're really doing is creating an illusion of safety. And does it really keep us safe? That's the other question. I think that's an illusion too.
Well, and we talk about safety, and you're talking about fear, and you say, that fear is imagined, and it is when we look at it through that lens. Because the other way I look at it, and so there are some things that we have to, stay safe from, right? You're not going to walk out in front of across a speeding highway. That's just stupid. That's putting yourself in danger. And danger to me is real things. Mm-hmm. Like danger is you're driving down the road and the oncoming car swerves into your lane. Holy crap, I'm in danger. And you take evasive action not to get hurt. But those instances of real danger versus imagined fear, you're right, 98% imagined fear, 2% real danger, 1% real danger. Depends on where you live in the world. It might be a little more, right? Depending on where you live, there might be a little more danger. The news companies want to tell you that, oh God, no, you're in danger all the time.
Yeah.
You better listen to us and heed our warnings and pay attention to our commercials that are going to sell you crap you don't need.
Exactly. More stuff to build your castle.
Right? Build your castle. Yeah. They're all about building castles, building walls, because they'll sell you the bricks, they'll sell you the mortar, and they'll sell you all the stuff, the supplies you need to stay bunkered in. That's what they do. That's how they make their money. Truth is, danger, very little in most parts of the world. Truth is, most imagined fear.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for bringing that 98% fear, because that's what the bricks are made of.
Right.
When you look at those bricks and you take each one down, you inspect it, you're like, poof, it's like powder. This dissolves. It's like poof.
So let me ask you this, Tommy. I mean, I know I have had the experience of, openly and vulnerably sharing myself with, certain people. Not everybody, but with certain people. But I've had the experience that every time I've done that, any fear that I imagined simply vaporized. It disappeared. It went away. If I had the belief that, oh my God, if I reveal this, they're going to judge me, they're going to hate me, blah, 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 blah. That was a story going on in my head. And that was part of the thing that was building up all the bricks in my castle. But what I discovered was the exact opposite. When people heard me share vulnerably about some of the things that maybe I didn't want to reveal about myself, what happened was they actually resonated. Oh yeah, I've had that happen too. Not all of them, but many of them. Or they've had something similar happen, or they can relate to me in some way, and they feel so relieved that they're now able to share with me. It's like magnificence, when I allow myself to get into it, creates connection. It creates amazing connection, actually. And that's what's so beautiful about it. It may not be something that you necessarily want to share with everybody. I mean, I think, like Tommy said, and like I've been saying too, there may be good reason to stay inside that castle from time to time. But most of the time, I think you want to get out into the open and start sharing who you really are with people so they can see your heart, see your soul, and see who you really are. That's where the magic and the beauty and the satisfaction and the fulfillment of life starts to happen. That's my experience. Did you have the same sort of thing happening?
Absolutely do. And even if you leave your castle intact at first, and you put the freaking drawbridge down, and you give the guard a day off, and you actually walk across the bridge and walk outside, and you're like, and just breathing some air and connecting with somebody and talking and striking up a conversation with a stranger from a place of love, from a place of openness, from a place of no fear. You're going to go home. You're going to walk back into that castle whistling. That was great. Oh, what a great talk I had with that person. Who knew that my neighbor and I have that kind of thing in common?
Yeah.
That's what happens. You're absolutely right, David. Every time I've ever ventured out of the castle, I've always just openly experienced what's going on outside the walls, without fear, without resent, without, I'm not carrying the guard with me, and nothing's with me. I'm just there. It's always a lovely experience. I've never had a bad thing happen in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not, again, it depends on where you're going. You got to be on, I'm not saying throw caution to the wind, but you're right. You open up and you don't get the pushback. You don't get the judgments. You don't get all the things you fear. All the bricks that you left behind aren't justified. You start to see, maybe I don't need that tower. Maybe I don't need the wall so high. Maybe I can knock it down. Maybe I can give the guard weekends off.
Yeah. I've even had the experience, Tommy, where I had to step through some fear to do this, but I've actually opened myself up and shared myself with someone who had the appearance of disliking me, of not resonating with me, of someone who really kind of scared me. And what I discovered was, this has not happened every time, and I'm not going to ever say that it does, but there have been times when I have opened myself to people like that and watched their castle melt away, watched them open up and become more open and intimate with me. It's as if they were just waiting for someone to show them how to do it, And that was like, oh my God, I think we can all do this. That's kind of the thought that went through my head. We can all do this. Every single one of us, if we choose to. Can you imagine what this world would be like if we all just threw away our facades and started being open and honest with one another? I mean, if all of us did it simultaneously, I think it would be freaking amazing. I think it would be, oh my God, I just can't even imagine what it would be like. But I do know that it has happened with me in very surprising ways with people I would never have expected to be able to connect with. And that's the beauty of it. When I create vulnerability just by opening up myself and letting my own guard down a little bit, I create intimacy, and I create connection, and I create safety for someone else to do the same thing. It's a powerful, powerful force, something that I never even knew I had until one day until I tried it. So
one day until I tried it. Imagine all the people living life in peace. That's kind of, you listen to the lyrics of that song, the whole song, and that's what John's talking about, is all of us letting down our guard and how amazing life becomes. Now, I don't have to wait for everyone else to do it. I don't have to wait for the whole world to do it at once.
Yeah.
I do it. I'm living it. I'm loving life. Life is working much better for me. Life is I feel much more connected. I'll have a lot deeper friendships. I have a lot more openness, and I'm not carrying a bunch of bags. I'm not carrying all those blocks to put another layer on the tower. I'm not carrying the cement and the mortar anymore. I put down the trowel. I put down the wheelbarrow. Life's just a lot funner, freer, easier, lighter, more magnificent.
Yeah, it is.
And I look at myself. I've had a freaking giant castle, man, and I've had alligators in the moat, and I've defended myself, and I've protected myself, and I've been up in that tower, and I've shouted down at people, "Hey, you! Get out of my yard! Get away from my gate!" You know,
right?
And it's a lonely, separate, sad life.
Yeah.
That I have to live at some aspect of my life.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I've done the same thing, dude. I've not only have I shouted at them, "Get the hell off my lawn," I've actually gotten out the mortars and just shot at them, get away. Offense is the best defense. And it was for me for a long time, and, I decided to shoot first and ask questions later. Very often, and many people I'm sure adopt those strategies. If I shoot first, get you out of the way, then I can keep myself safe. And what am I really doing by doing that? I am allowing my fear to drive my behavior. And so I am feeding the fear monster that exists in the world. The moment I can just recognize that that's what I'm doing, the moment I say, "Oh, I'm caught up in my fear, and that is what's causing me to react in this way," I can stop. I can take a breath. I have that power. And when I stop and take a breath, then I have the power to decide if I really want to continue acting in that way, or if I want to choose a different pathway that might be more open, more loving, more compassionate, more magnificent. I have that power. You have that power. You have that power. You can do it too. All of us can do it. And I challenge us all to start thinking along these lines and just start doing it.
Yeah, it's feeding the fear monster, right? And I want to sit on that for a minute too, because when we talked about being born into this human race that has a basic foundation of working in these energies, lower human energies of fear and greed, desire, those kind of dominate a lot of the landscape that we're in. And anytime we bring fear into it, or anytime we instill fear in others, like if we increase somebody else's fear by trying to teach them how to drive, by scaring them or honking a horn at them, or we're increasing somebody else's fear, we're adding fear. We're adding, if this world is an energy equation, we're adding heavy, negative, sad energy to the mix. So feeding that fear monster is very much a conscious thing in my mind and my heart of how I interact with the world. And I catch myself still. I'm like, I shouldn't have done that, because I just increased somebody else's fear a little bit, or I just made somebody else feel a little bit worse, or maybe I did. Or I'm taking that energy on, I'm watching the news again and I'm feeling like crap. Well, of course I'm feeling like crap because I'm watching the news again. Duh. So I'm feeding that fear monster, that energy monster, where the less we put into it, the less we put into the negative energy, the more positive is naturally there. Right. And it just this is the way the planet is shifting. This is the way we're evolving right now. This is the evolution of humankind into consciousness. Means we're just a little more conscious about what we're doing and the impact we're having. I'm no longer eating a candy and taking the wrapper and throwing it on the ground. not drinking a soda and tossing a can on the ground anymore. I'm not dumping on the planet. And we've stopped, we're slowing our littering, you know, over the last 20, 30 years. Remember the Indian who used to cry on TV?
Mm-hmm.
The Native American. And we energetically, we have to think of life the same way. Energetically, am I littering? Am I dumping? Am I adding fuel to the fire? Am I, you know, feeding the fear monster?
Right.
In everything we do, everything we think, and everything we say. And that is your magnificence coming through. And when you're in that place of magnificence and you're not protected and not guarded, naturally you communicate in a way that is not littering, is not dumping, and is not inducing more sick pain and suffering and fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, great. And well, there's a couple of things that you said there that I want to come back to. One was, you know, the idea of being aware. I mean, once you have awareness and you recognize that you've done something that may have come from a place of fear, well, guess what? You are now empowered to do something about it. If you realize, for example, that you have done something that may have caused someone else to be in more fear, you can always go back to that person. You can make amends in some way. You can say, you know, I recognize that this is what I did and I was coming from a place of fear. That's not the way I want to be showing up. What I'd rather be doing is dealing with you from a place of love. So let me find a different way of addressing that very issue. I'm telling you, you'll have an amazing effect on that person. Most people never, ever, ever go back and fix things, you know, but we can change that. We can start doing that on our own. It's easy. It really is easy. When I notice that I've made a mistake, bang, just own it, because my magnificence says there's nothing wrong with me for making mistakes. So there's nothing wrong with that person for making mistakes either. So I can go and I can deal with that person. And the second thing you talked about was, you know, the news. You were talking about watching the news. I think it's important for us to be aware of what's going on in our world. And that may mean watching the news. But I don't have to watch the news and get caught up in the place of fear. I can look and try and find the data that's in there and say, okay, what can I do to help change this? What can I do to help heal this? I can't heal it by letting my fear and my anger and all the rest of those negative emotions come up. I can heal it by allowing my forgiveness and my love and my compassion to come up, because then from that place, I can find a solution that might help heal this problem.
Yeah, and let's talk about that news thing for a minute, because depending on where you are and how strong you feel as far as awareness goes and consciousness and inner energy and your magnificence shining through, we're all at different stages of that. And if some of us are in an earlier stage where we still have a lot of our walls around us and we're still, you know, just venturing out once in a while, venturing out across the moat and going down to the corner store where they have the TV blaring is probably not the place you want to be.
Right.
If you want to walk out, you want to go to the park and you want to sit with people in the park and have nice open conversations, because you're in the healing process too. You're in this untying of all these knots. You're in the process of dismantling this thing that you think is your life. And that's a tender thing to go through.
It is.
And so that's all I'm saying is the news watching piece of it. If you're in a place of your magnificence is 90% shining through and go ahead, watch it. Like you said, David, watch it objectively, understand what's going on. I listen to NPR a couple times a day when I'm in the car. I get very objective. Here's what's happening. There's not a lot of drama. There's not a lot of fear coming through the commentators. There's not a lot of energy coming through. They're just, here's what's happening. This happened. It's bad. You know, let's say some prayers. Okay. That's very objective input, which I can objectively just, okay, now I know what's going on. I know there's bad shit happening in the world. I'm not ignorant to that. I don't turn a blind eye to it either. Mm-hmm. I'm very compassionate. I'm very much, you know, could really become a bleeding heart, but that doesn't serve me.
Right.
That doesn't serve my strength. That doesn't serve my energy. It doesn't serve my ability to be magnificent and to help others in the best way I can.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the energy game. Mm-hmm. Depending on how full your energy tank is, you can indulge in things that would otherwise, you know, drain your energy. So just a matter of watching what you're taking in, right? Because we're just recorders, and you watch what you eat. And if you're coming out of a hospital bed, you're sick, you're recovering, you're not going to start popping sugar and candy and Coca-Cola in your system to get better.
Mhm.
You don't do it that way logically.
Right.
So same thing in our spiritual healing. Watch what you eat.
So getting back to the sculpture and to the whole notion of us being a magnificent masterpiece, it's now a great time for all of us to really connect into that essence, that beauty, that magnificence of who we really are. Now, I know that sometimes it may sound like an egotistical statement to say that I am a magnificent, divine, spiritual being of light and love, and I just happen to be having a physical human experience along with the rest of you. It may sound a little egotistical, but really it isn't. It's just your spirit speaking its own truth. So my invitation to you is to just allow yourself to take some time to metaphorically step out of that castle. Now, for me, doing that metaphorically, really the best way I know to do that is to sit quietly and just allow myself to get as quiet as I possibly can. Now, I happen to like sitting in a little meditation bench and just kind of closing my eyes and just letting my thoughts just do whatever they want to do and then letting them go, just letting them go. And the more I do that, the deeper and the quieter I get, the more I really connect to that true magnificence within, to that essence of who I really am. And it's a very quiet, wonderful, delicious, magnificent essence that can't be described in words. It has to be experienced. And I believe that every person on the planet has the ability to connect to that. And my hope is that you will begin to connect to that and take some time this week to do it. Tommy, you have any suggestions about how people can, other ways that people can connect to that?
Yeah, so 100% agree on finding that in the stillness and the quiet within, because in there is where your magnificence sits. Your magnificence isn't in the noise, it isn't in the clutter, it isn't in the thoughts. Your magnificence, your essence, your spirit is not thoughts. It's everything else but thought in you. So yeah, sitting in silence helps you connect to that, and it'll just happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is to recognize magnificence. So let's say Michelangelo is chipping away at David, and David is half exposed, half like there in however David sits or stands, and a lot of us are like that, like we're halfway still buried in our bricks, but half of us is out. Honor that half that's out. Honor that part of you that has experienced the magnificence and the truth. And an easy way of doing that is sometimes just to take an index card, a 3x5 card or something, and write some of your ahas, write some of your wins, write some of your gains, write some of these things, these awakenings and awarenesses or experiences in life that, look, I walked down the street and I talked to a neighbor and I had a really beautiful connection with him. Okay, connection with John. Write it down, because so much of life is always telling us what's wrong and put another brick up and make some more cement and all that stuff. That's what the material world tells us. And we have to counterbalance that with the magnificence and the essence. And sometimes it just takes writing it down on a card and looking at it once in a while. I go, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing it right. Yeah, making progress.
Yeah. Well, and another way that really works for me, I love doing backpacking in the backcountry, where there aren't too many people. It's not that I don't like people. It's just that when I'm in that place, when I'm out in nature somewhere, I find that nature has a very, what's the word I want to say? A non-judgmental quality about it. Nature is completely accepting about everything and everyone within it. And it's a great essence for me it's a great place for me to be able to feel less judgmental about myself. So that's one thing that I have found very, very helpful. And certainly when I go into nature, sitting down and meditating is just so easy. I love meditating in nature with my eyes open and just seeing birds or deer or whatever other animals happen to be around, just sitting there watching and just feeling that I am a part of this, that I am connected to it, that I'm one with it, that I am magnificent. It is an amazing feeling. And like Tommy says, there are many, many other things. I really, really strongly agree with this idea of writing down little wins. Oh, I felt great when I said that to so-and-so. Oh, I gave this guy $10, this homeless guy $10, and it just felt so good to allow myself to do it with no attachment. You know, there are so many ways that we can let our magnificence shine through to the point where it becomes a habit. It becomes an ongoing practice. And that, of course, leads us right into next week's conversation. And Joanne Roderman is going to be with us. And she's actually on listening to our show today, but she's going to be with us as a guest next week. And what are we going to be talking about then, Tommy?
Dude, we're going to take one of Joanne's famous, beautiful topics of forgiveness, and we're going to just add to it. So we think about the future, right? And if we're in the process of building bricks, and we're in the brick metaphor and building more bricks, why don't you anticipate that things are not always going to go well in the future, and that things are going to, somebody may hurt us or say something that's going to offend us, or something bad is going to happen on the planet. And instead of being prepared to build bricks, we're going to be prepared to take more down. And we're going to talk about a concept I kind of coined, or I guess called pre-forgiveness. We're going to start to pre-forgive the future. So Joanne's going to join us next week. It's going to be a lovely session. Joanne, we're looking forward to having you. Until then, David, I want to leave one last word about nature.
Yeah.
There's no human race in nature. So let's go out there and enjoy it and just be your human nature in nature.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tommy. Take care, bro. We'll see you next week.